Father Pat, and this is Fantastic Fridays with Father Pat. And I'm just thrilled to be here for another story hour with you. Today we're celebrating the feast of Our Lady of Fátima. 3 children, 1917, saw Our Lady. And you know, I hear so many people say, boy, I just wish, Father, that something like that would happen for me. And I say, be careful what you're wishing for. We think, well, it's such a great deal. Yeah. Do we think of what those children suffered because of it? God doesn't give us suffering, but the world sure does. And the 2 of the younger ones died very young, I think within a year of the apparitions. And Lucy lived into her 90s as a nun. And that was no easy thing for her. So none of them had it easy after. They were called to give God's message of love to the world. Suffering, God doesn't give us. When God created, there was no suffering. Humanity brought suffering into the world when it said no to God. And said, well, yeah, I know God said this, but, listening to Satan, we don't let God's will be done. And we bring suffering into our lives, the lives of our loved ones. The beauty of God. He refuses to be mastered by us. He redeems. My favorite verse of scripture, you've heard me already many times and you'll hear it again. My favorite verse, he redeems my life from destruction. If there's one message that comes loud and clear, if the children of Fátima, 1917 to today, they would have never dreamed they'd be touching the world. And yet, they did. And that's all of us. But it's God's doing, not ours. Sub fere is the Latin. Walking under a burden. I'm carrying a burden. Fere is carrying. Sub under. The burdens of life, they're God's. People say, oh, it's God's will. No, suffering isn't God's will. Redemption is his will. He brings good out of it. And I look at my own life, right up to this very week. Yesterday, I was cleaning up to start another day. And coming out of the shower, I fell. And I couldn't get back up. Thank God I live in assisted living. And if some of you don't know what assisted living is, it's the most beautiful gift we ever thought of giving creatures. We glorify independence. Oh no, I want to be independent. I want to be independent. I don't want this assisted living. But we don't realize what we're throwing away. Assisted living means, very simply, I need assistance, I'm going to have it. My little apartment was crowded with people there to help me. Wouldn't let me get up. I had to stay on the floor till the aides came, firemen and whatnot, and they picked me up. And once I was standing up, I was able to walk and everything. They said, okay, you okay? Yeah, okay. But I noticed I'm weaker. My right side is weaker and everything. And people say, but Father, that's not fair. Look at all you've done over the world and for so many people. And why is God giving this suffering? They blame God for it. But why is he allowing somebody to suffer? God doesn't allow it. Had God's will been done, there'd have been no suffering in the world. We brought suffering into the world by preferring our way instead of God's way. The beauty of God, I can assure you, as I sit here with you on this beautiful, gorgeous afternoon in Texas. I don't know about you people elsewhere in the country or the world, but right here, this is heyday. It's beautiful. But I moved here 3 years ago, and I'd come to speak, celebrate Mass and speak. And when I touched the place, I just said to my sister, because I've been living with her and her husband until then, and I said, I'm moving in. And she started to cry. She said, I thought you were going to be with us to your dying day. I said, well, that was my plan, but I think he's got a better plan. And a better plan he did have. When Roger asked me, when I was talking about moving in, did I want to be in an independent apartment or assisted living? And thank God, my pride didn't get in there at all. I just said, oh no, I need assisted living. There's things I can't do. I need help. And days like yesterday reminded me of how good it is to be here. I get picked up off the floor. They came and cleaned my bathroom. They cleaned up everything, and they couldn't do enough for me. And that's what it's all about. But our world glorifies independence. Oh, you got to be independent. You got to be independent. I grew up with that. In New York, when I started my work with the handicapped, I was held up as the poster child. Look at Brother Pat. He needs nobody. He comes and goes all over the city with no one else's help. He needs no one. And that was seen as a wonderful gift. But what a curse it was. I'll never forget my first Christmas in New York. I wasn't supposed to be here. I was working for the New York Public Library, finding the handicapped for them. And they had given me, since they knew I was from afar, they had given me the week off for Christmas. So I was all prepared. It was a gorgeous sunny afternoon, and I was flying from LaGuardia up to Maine. But I suddenly found out all the flights to Maine were canceled. We were gorgeous here, but up there they were in the midst of a blizzard. All the flights were canceled. The trains were canceled. The buses were canceled. And I just looked and I said, Well, I ended up staying in New York all by myself for Christmas. I was living with the Irish Christian brothers at the time, and they, thinking I had gone to my family, had gone to their families for Christmas Day. And I spent Christmas alone. I didn't have to be alone. That's the sad thing. If I hadn't let my pride get in the way, I had plenty of friends I could have called who would have been thrilled to have me come to their home for Christmas dinner. But no, you don't bother friends on Christmas. No, I spent Christmas Day alone. I read The Godfather, the book on talking books. Spent the whole day reading. That was Christmas, 1975. How stupid I was. But I think it was Barbara Streisand who sang the song, "People who need people are the luckiest people in the world." And that's us. When we choose to need people, we've got, our life is so rich. But it was a lot of years teaching me. God was patient with me. And now, living here and independent living and assisted living, I love this place. I just pray that others would discover it and would put aside that whole stupidity of the world that independence is the way to go. No. Independence creates lonely people. It doesn't give us a joy. I have found a joy here at the Villa de San Antonio that I would have never dreamed. Our dining halls, when they're open, but soon to be opened, I guess, because the epidemic is all but over, hopefully. And it's wonderful to walk into the dining hall and people going, "Father Pat, come over here, come over here, come over here." People wanting me to go to their table. And that's what I love. I love being here. And this is far from a lonely place. Is the most loving place I think I've ever been at. I just love it. God created us, and He said it's not good for man to be alone. We glorify aloneness. We glorify independence, not God. He's got so much He wants to give us, and very often it's through each other. I thank God today for the wonderful gift of the Villa de San Antonio, for the gift of learning to need people. People who need people are truly the luckiest people.